Today's episode is very special, right? We have a wonderful topic and we're going to be very intentional today. And the topic is the title actually of today's conversation is Grief Doesn't Clock Out. We talk about healing and human performance. Now, as part of what I do, I like to think of performance as being something holistic. It's about the mindset, it's about the body, and it's about life. Things happen. And so the title today is very intentional. We're talking about grief because grief doesn't stay neatly at home. It actually comes to work with us, and it shows up in our bodies, in our focus, our energy, our relationships, and our ability to perform, even sometimes a very long time after the initial loss. So, grief is something that, every single human on the planet will experience. And yet, it remains one of the least understood and least supported realities in our personal lives and in the workplace. So, we've very often expected to say, ah, I'm fine. I'll be fine. Will get back to normal, or you have to keep functioning as if nothing even happened, but even when everything has changed. So in this conversation today, we'll explore grief not only as an emotional experience, but as the whole person experience. It's affecting our mental health, physical health, identity, performance, and yes, leadership as well. My guest today knows this reality deeply, both personally and professionally. So, Christine, thank you so much for being here today. And I let you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very glad to be here today. So my name is Christine, as you said. I am Swedish, born and raised outside of Stockholm in Sweden. And I still live outside of Stockholm with my two children in a house. And professionally, I have an HR background. I've worked more than 20 years in HR functions in international companies, French and American companies mainly, covering Scandinavian and Nordic offices. And a few years ago, I decided that it was time for something new.
Mhm.
And it always sounds so neatly when you tell it afterwards, but I did a lot of thinking and reflecting, and eventually that led me into coaching. So I obtained a coaching certificate.
And that's when we met, actually.
Exactly, exactly. That was also an international setting in the coaching, and I left my employment and started my own company in coaching. And from the start, it was mainly about leadership and that kind of coaching, talent development, and things like that. But that has evolved, and I've now added grief as into my coaching, and now also a grief educator. So that's the super short introduction of me.
Yeah, that's super. So you know what? Let's just go, just dive into it straight. So I have a direct question. What happened about 2 years ago?
Yeah, that that day, almost 2 years ago now. 2 years ago, I lived where I still live, but my family was larger. I lived with my husband Kalle, which is like a nickname for Carl in Swedish, very common name. So Kalle and our two children and a dog. We also had an 8-month-old Dalmatian at the time. And in March, it was a Saturday morning. And if you have been to the Nordic region, you will know that time just between winter and spring, where the air is so clear, the sun was shining, the sky was blue, and it's still very crispy and fresh, a bit cold outside. It was one of those mornings. Kalle and me had been out with the dog for a short morning walk. We had had breakfast. the whole family. And then we had done a workout session. Kalle, me, and my son. We usually did that on Saturday mornings, put up the computer, pull out some online training session, and we did that. So we did a cardio session that morning. And after that class, Kalle went into the shower. I lingered, had a banana or something. And then he came out, he took a short shower, and he said, "You know what? I'm gonna go up and lie down for a while. I don't feel so good." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll take the dog out," because I knew that he needed some exercise. And I said to the children, like, "Can you just check on Dad, see if he's okay, see if he needs some water or something, and just call me if anything comes up." And I took my phone and I left. And of course, I didn't expect them to call, but they did. I was about 15 or 20 minutes away with the dog when the kids called me and said that there's something wrong with Dad. He looks strange in his face. He makes funny noises when he breathes, and we can't wake him up. And I froze. It was like this icy hand just squeezing my chest. And I hung up with them. I called 911, or the equivalent in Sweden, and they wanted to talk with someone who was at the house. So I put them in touch with my son. He's the oldest, and he was 13 at the time. And I rushed home with the dog as fast as I could. And on the way there, I called my daughter. So I had her on the line while she told me that her brother was doing CPR as instructed from the emergency people. So I rushed home, and she said that now Dad is not breathing anymore. And when I came to the house, I just rushed in and I relieved my son from the CPR, and I took over, tried to continue, but I could see on Calle's face that this was not good. And about the same time, people started coming into the house, because when you dial the emergency line, there's this survey that goes out to volunteers. So some people from the neighborhood came running. They had received a text that there was a cardiac arrest nearby. So they came running with a defibrillator and took over. And just a few minutes later, the ambulance came and took him to the hospital. I had to stay at home to make sure that someone could watch the kids and the dog. So a bit later, one of these volunteers, were such angels, really, one of them took me to the hospital. And when I came there, I was shown to a room where I could sit down, and then the doctor came in, a heart specialist, and she said to me, "We've done everything we could. We have the best specialists in place today and the best equipment, but your husband's life couldn't be saved." And there I was. And I was given a few moments to just try to take this in. And then I had to somehow get the children to come to the hospital without telling them what had happened, so that I could tell them in person. I somehow managed to do that, and they came there all hopeful, asking like, "Where is Dad? Can we see him? Is he awake?" And I had to tell them that your father's dead, not coming back. And that is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, to having to tell them that. So there we were. And I won't go into all the details what happened afterwards, but we got to say goodbye to him, and we were really taken care of as much as they could at the hospital. There was a beautiful hospital priest there, and I'm not an active religious person, but she asked if she could come in with us and sit with us for a while, and I'm really glad that she did. So that is what happened almost 2 years ago that changed everything. He was there for breakfast, and
Yeah.
by lunch he was gone. It's
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I want to say is thank you and apologies for making you relieve that moment. Um, but I think it's important that people can hear it, because then they realize the how dramatical is it. Because even when you speak about it, I can feel it myself. Like it's it's kind of, how do we pass that moment even now when we speak about it? It's really, it feels still raw. um
yeah, yeah, and thank you for like approaching it with such consideration. I think that's the key. Most people who have been experienced something like that, it can be healing to talk about it,
mm,
but it needs to be on our terms.
yes.
So many people, that's about the first thing they ask. If I tell them that my husband is dead, it automatically comes out like, oh, what happened? That can feel quite intrusive if it's not someone I know or feel comfortable with. So I think that's really pleased that you brought it up this in this kind way, and really inviting me to share if it was okay, and of course it is today. So it's good to share,
Yeah.
but it needs to be on our terms in a way.
Yeah, and I think that's the first lesson actually you're sharing with us today, by this example. um so obviously the hope is, with the conversation we can create something today, and we create more awareness around this. So, I mean, a question that I would have to ask is, and I kind of want to move away from the story, but I can't really. I want to ask then, without going into too much detail, but okay, then what happened in terms of, like, how soon did you go back to work? Um, like, how do you
Mm.
handle everything? Because it's just everything is upside down. Like, you're losing a support as well, more on top of the friend, the love, the everything, the partner. Right? It's somebody who supports the family with you. So
Yeah.
how does that work for you? Maybe first in your personal life, and then we can progress into the work life.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It's I think all losses are a shock, but in this case, it was so sudden. So of course, nothing was prepared for this. I didn't even have the PIN code to Calle's phone because I never went into his phone. So
Mm.
just little things like that. Everything suddenly needs to be handled, and for me personally, I was fortunate since I had my own company, I had my own business. So professionally, I could choose very much myself what to do and when to do it. But for many people, there is maybe a bereavement policy in place, which gives you a few days off. And that is good for making some practical arrangements or attending a funeral, but it doesn't even begin to cover the grief support that is needed, because a few days in, you most of the times haven't even really realized what has happened. You're still in a kind of shock. And I
Yeah.
think overall, anyone who has had to handle what comes after a loved one dies knows that there is so many decisions to be made, so much administration. At least in the western part of the world, there's these, you have to have the funeral within a certain amount of time, and so that is just thrown at you at the time where you are really not in a state of making good decisions at all.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot.
A question that comes to mind, because obviously, um, I mean, this video will be shared on different channels, professional ones and maybe other ones. So we'll have people that are not from the Nordics, like myself. I wouldn't be familiar with the number of days people would get from work. Uh, how many days is standard in Sweden when something like that happens for
I
people that are
actually,
employed? Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know, there is no like national regulations to cover this, but in Sweden it's very common with collective bargain agreements. So you have the unions and the employers that have agreed on certain,
Yeah.
and in most collective bargain agreements, I don't think either it's specified specifically about bereavement leave. So as far as I know, it's more company policies. And the companies I've been in, it has usually been a few days.
What do you mean by a few days? Like a week?
Up to 5 days is quite common, I think, but I think it can vary, and I think that may be part of the problem too, that there are no really base numbers to work from or starting point. It's sort of forgotten a bit, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah. And I remember myself when I lost my dad, I had to jump on the plane, go far, far away because I'm from Gabon, Central Africa. So
Mm,
I went back home for a week and I just came back
mm,
and I heard the news actually at work that he had passed.
mm,
So I just jumped away from my seat and my colleagues could see me, could see that it was really bad. So they knew that my dad was sick and I went to the bathroom and I just cried. And I had a lovely colleague actually. She came and she was like, she didn't know if she was coming or going. She was in the bathroom talking to me like, Lily, is there anything that I can do? And
mm,
I still remember, and I was thinking, I was not thinking because I didn't know. I don't know what I was thinking, but it's very interesting. So thinking of what you shared, the fact that typically in the Nordics, it's a week. I'm based in Ireland. When I worked in tech, so for 20 years, just like you. It's funny. Um, I don't know what the policy was, to be honest. And I've been a manager myself, sales manager in tech. I had no idea, how much would somebody take, or if in Ireland there's even like a framework around this. I have no clue. But what I know is I took 5 days too,
mm,
7 days counting the weekend,
mm.
and I was back at my seat.
Yeah.
And there was another manager, he just Irish man, very nice, and he said, Lily, can I do something? And
Mm,
in Ireland, people are really family oriented, but it's like we don't know what we should do. And I was thinking, how should I behave?
mm,
Because I remember feeling guilty of being away for a week because I had a lot of things going on.
mm,
So you don't know when you're like, okay, I need to keep on going because these people are paying me.
mm,
So I just want to ask you, and because I really want to use your experience to learn more. How did that? So you were having your own business, right? So you could pretty much, um, but would you know like how does that look like for people in general? It
mm,
doesn't matter how many days they take off, but what happens usually when you get back? Because me, I got back and it was business as usual. Now a few friends, a colleague that I'm friendly with that week came all to me with a very sad face, sad look, and would ask me all if I was okay, if there was anything they could do for me. And they really meant it. And that lasted a week. And then we were back in action.
mm.
I'm not judging anyone. I'm just saying factually, this is the way it was for me.
Yeah.
I suspect it's might be the way it is for a lot of people. But
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's how it is in most places, I would say, that you come back
yeah,
and many people won't maybe come over at all because they are uncomfortable and don't know what to say.
mm,
And those who do, as you say, maybe with a sad face asking, what can I do? Or let me know if I can help. And then, people move on. So they go back to their normal and they sort of forget, I think.
mm,
And also not judging. I think that's just how it is. And but nothing is normal for you anymore, or for me, or the normal is very new and different. So it's I think you're not alone in that experience at all.
And so what did you learn from your experience, you know, because obviously you had to cope. Um, what did you
Mhm.
learn from that experience?
Yeah, I I am learning, and maybe that is the first learning, that this is not something that will go away.
Mm,
But I thought, as I think many people do, I thought that grief was something that you would sort of work through and then be done with and be able to move on somehow magically. But that is not how it works. So instead, it's about learning to carry this
yeah.
grief with you and still have a good life,
Hmm.
but you will always carry it with you. I heard this description of grief, and I think it was Jay Shetty who
Oh,
shared it. Yeah, and I think he had heard it from someone else, but he mentioned this in an interview, and he described grief as having a stone in your pocket. And he said that at, in the beginning, when this has just happened, the stone is so heavy and sharp, and it hurts so much, and you can barely move because of the pain and the weight of the stone. And as time goes by, the stone will not become smaller and it will not go away, but you will become stronger. So you will grow and work out so that you're able to carry the stone without it stopping you. So eventually you will be able to walk and run and move even with the stone in your pocket.
yeah.
And I just find that beautiful because that resonates really much with me. That it always will be with me, but I will learn how to carry it. Maybe the edges of the stone will soften a bit, but it will still be as heavy and there, but I will be stronger. So that is a learning. I've also learned that I'm not alone. I'm learning that there are people everywhere who are experiencing grief in different shapes. It doesn't always have to be about a person dying.
Mm,
But grief is everywhere, and it's somehow strange that we treat it as some like bad luck or some bad exception that happened to a few unlucky people, where really it's a part of life. And death is a part of the life cycle. No one can escape it. So it's a bit strange that it's so hidden. So I realized I'm not alone, and that also strangers can feel very close when it comes to things like this.
mhm.
I've joined a grief group online, an American grief group, because I didn't find one that suited me here locally. And people from all over the world are in this group. And I will never meet them in person, most of them. Most of them are far away from where I am. And still, they can feel very close because they get it. And sometimes my friends that are close in other areas and that I've been close with for a long time here don't feel so close when it comes to this because they're really good friends, but they just don't get it.
Are you still in touch with that group? Are you still
Yes.
meeting them virtually? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful group because it evolves. So it unlocks like different chapters as you move along in your grief. But you can, yeah, people are in it for many years because we evolve, the grief evolves, but it doesn't go away. So the
Yeah.
topics and the angles shift because you have different needs when you're right at the beginning from when you're several years in. But you still get that support and exchanges, and it's a beautiful group.
Wonderful. Now, and I'll come back to I love the kind of the image of the stone. I think it's very powerful. And so I'm just going to hold back on it just for a few seconds. I'll come back to it. I just wonder, obviously, as a performance health coach, obviously I do the leadership part like you, and but health, wellness has always been a passion of mine that I'm not now embracing completely.
Mhm.
So as a certified health coach, I always wonder, because I remember when that happened with my dad when he was getting sick, I was just having experiencing a lot of stress at work because of work. But then in my personal life, obviously, my dad being sick. So I wonder, like, from your perspective, did you did you feel it was affecting your health? And I mean, well, health in the holistic way. That could be your mental health, that could be your physical health. Um,
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And I think it affected my health in all those aspects. And if starting with the physical reactions, I when after Kalle had died, I had trouble eating. I felt nauseous. I didn't want to eat anything. I knew I had to eat because I knew I needed to refuel, and I also wanted to show the children that I was taking care of myself. I couldn't just let myself go. But it was like my body couldn't absorb the nutrition really, so I lost weight. I can't say I had real sleeping problems, which I know is very common, but I was constantly tired. I slept all night. I had harder dreams sometimes, but I still slept. But I couldn't go through a full day without getting a nap somewhere because I couldn't stay awake a full day. And if I didn't take this nap, I would get this pounding headache. It was like my body was just screaming at me, like, you need to rest, you need to calm down and just yeah, rest. And I noticed that I lost more hair than usual. Um, Skin, nails, everything is, it's like the whole body is out of balance and not in a good shape. And so, yes, I felt it. And I think it's interesting because a lot of the physical reactions to grief are the same as you can see in burnout cases, which in a way makes sense because both are like this reaction to acute stress. You know, that's what the body is in, acute stress after this.
mm,
And yes, mentally as well, there is this thing called grief brain, which also shows up in similar ways with burnout and menopause, where the balance in the body is changed. So you get this brain fog and uh, difficulties concentrating, focusing, making decisions, which then, of course, is not at all a good combination with all the decisions and everything you have to make after a death. So I felt all that, and emotionally, I think most people quite easily imagine sadness as part of the grief, and it is, but there are so many other emotions showing up that I did not at all expect.
tell us more.
Yes, like anger, and I'm usually not a very angry person, but anger can really show up, and you can be angry at the person who died. I haven't been that angry with Kalle, but I know that's very normal. That how could you leave me? It's a natural reaction, and be angry at universe or God if you're a religious person. Like, how could you do this to me? Um, Guilt. Our brain automatically goes into what could I have done? I should have done that if I hadn't done this, and we try to find reasons for everything. So, and that is not helping either. And what I've struggled with, and what I'm still struggling with a bit, because I'm still in on this journey, is this very uncomfortable numbness, which I also know is normal. But it's like I don't get really excited about many things, neither good things. I don't get really upset with bad things. It's like this filter covering my emotions. And that's really an uncomfortable place to be because it's easy to start thinking like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I feel more?
Question: why do you think there is, if you had to find an explanation, and we're not trying to be 100% accurate, and everything is different for everybody. But what could be a possible explanation for numbness? And I'm not being a coach with you, right? Just to be clear here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I think part of it can be like a protection, because we can't really deal with all feelings, feeling them 100% at all times, especially when there are hard, painful
Yeah.
feelings involved. So it can be a protection from
Yeah.
that the body is letting out in a slower pace
Yeah.
what we can handle. And also, I think it can also be related to a more like existential question, like you sort of lose your ground and your sense of purpose and why, and it can be almost like a depression covering it all. But I'm just speculating here as well. I don't have like scientific explanations for it, but
Yeah, but sometimes, common sense and the way we feel or our instinct can actually help us come up with responses that are quite accurate. And
yeah.
everything is very personal as well. So,
Yeah, and I think it goes a long way also when you're feeling this, that to know that it's normal and that it's common in grief. That helps a lot because it takes away a bit of that "what's wrong with me" feeling.
yeah.
So I think it's just good to know that all feelings in grief is normal, even relief. If for example you've witnessed a person suffering from an illness, and when they die,
Yeah.
there can be a sense of relief, and then immediately you have guilt for like, am I relieved that this person is dead?
Yeah.
But of course it's not about that. It's about being relieved that the suffering has ended.
And that's something I'm very transparent as a person. When my dad passed away, he was sick for many years.
Hmm.
So when it was about to come, I pray that evening. I said, please let him go.
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping for him. And that happened. So when that happened, I was really upset, obviously. But I kind of asked for it because
Yeah.
it was too hard to watch. All right. Now this is a big topic, and obviously we feel the emotions and everybody has experienced it. Everybody does and will, unfortunately. And when we experience them, those experiences are with us at work because we are holistic people, obviously. So everybody goes through that. Now you've nicely explained how it can affect your obviously your body, like physically, mentally. For myself, I would just share a small, tiny experience, and I think we discussed it offline, and I think it was really related to that. And I think you might have a name for that that I can't remember what it was. So I just want to share it. Um, so for me, I was working in tech. He was sick. He was very sick. He hadn't passed away just yet, but he was very sick. So it was very tough. And I was here in Ireland, and I was very worried, going through a lot of stress at work, working in tech sales and targets and everything, and all the things. And I remember one day feeling super overwhelmed, and I could feel like my heart was beating so fast. And I said to myself, I'm gonna have a heart attack at work. I just felt like my heart was racing, and I could feel it, like I could physically feel my body. So I had done first aid training because I'm a personal trainer as well. So I remember just being very logical and say, go to the bathroom. And for the first time in my life, I sat on the toilet. I put down the cover and I sat on it, and I just lifted my feet, and I just had my feet high against the toilet door so that the blood could flow back, because that's what I had learned when I did my first ed training. Like if somebody's going to have a heart attack, just leave their feet. That could be something that could help. So I remember doing that and thinking, oh my God, I'm about to have a heart attack. And when you and I discussed this, it made me feel like this was linked to all the stress I was experiencing, because I've been always very sporty, athletic, whatever. So, yeah, I don't know if you can touch on that, because some people might have experienced similar things.
Yeah, there is a phenomenon, or it's called the broken heart syndrome, and there's also a Japanese name for it, but I don't recall that right now. But it's believed to be caused by this massive overload of adrenaline and other um, substances or enzymes, hormones that affects the heart, the pumping mechanism. So it sort of mimics a heart attack. And even if it's not a heart attack, it is crucial that if you get that kind of symptom, or that reminds you of a heart attack, you should go to the hospital and get medical attention immediately, because you need to get discover it early, to get treatment,
Yeah.
even though it's not like a real heart problem. But and I think that really just goes to show how linked everything is. Like something happens to us emotionally, and it triggers these real physical effects. So yeah, the broken heart syndrome.
Cool. So that's a good learning, I think, for people. Now, obviously, this is real life, and now we moved a bit to the workplace,
Mhm.
and some of the people that might listen to this might find us and you more specifically on LinkedIn. So I just want to know, like, first, obviously, how did you become a grief coach? But I think the story is there. Could you let us know, like, so what made you decide, like, how did you, because it's one thing to go through it, it's another thing to decide to support other people. Why did you decide to do that?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, I think that when Kalle died, I had my own coaching business, and I had decided on a direction for my business. Um, and then when this happened, it was like, yeah, the rug was completely pulled from under my feet, and it felt like I fell into a sinkhole, and I just lost my way completely. And I think as a coach, we need to know our own why and have this sense of purpose. And I completely lost that because everything felt meaningless, to be honest. So I was fortunate enough to be able to take the time and space to land and start recalibrating a bit, like where am I going and what am I doing here and why. And somehow along the way, in this grief group that I was in, I also learned about a program where you could, if you wanted to, educate yourself to be able to support others. And I felt this, it was almost like a calling. And I think the combination with the coaching that I had, and to be able to add this dimension,
Yeah.
it made sense. And it turns out in that program, almost everybody who is working with grief in some way had their own personal experience to get them there.
Yeah.
So it's like I didn't choose it; it chose me in a
Yeah.
way. And I think it goes well with my coaching, because I think, and in all coaching, the starting point is, a person who wants to change something and somehow wants to create a better life, whether it's within wellness or health and or leadership and different kinds of coaching. And I just sort of realized that, not all changes are voluntary. Sometimes things just happen to us and we are forced to change. And yeah, like in my case, I mean, this Calle's death was nothing that I chose or had wanted, and still it happened. So how do I deal with that kind of change? And I think that's where the grief comes in. And it doesn't, as I said, it doesn't have to be related to the death of a person, but grief shows up in many other situations. And we need to get the tools and figure out a way forward after that change has just hit us.
Yeah. And grief can be a grief, like grieving your own past career.
Mhm.
That could be a relationship, That could
Yeah.
be, yeah, there's a lot of grief around. It's just like when you start putting your different lenses, you start realizing, um, cool. Now, as a grief coach, because people are listening and they are thinking, okay, how this could benefit me. Do I need to get in touch with her directly? Maybe the company that I work for could do things to facilitate me. Or maybe somebody who works in HR is thinking, Jesus, I don't even know how to handle those situations actually. So, like, who do you usually work with?
Well, I work with private clients who, and it can be, as I said, it can be involuntary changes, but also then involuntary changes, and how to figure out what to do next, and then find meaning in what comes afterwards,
Mhm.
when you've been forced to change. And I'm also reaching out, and now I've actually created a free course for HR professionals to get this introduction to this topic, because as we've talked about, it's usually not very well thought of in companies, and maybe not included in the well-being programs. We
Yeah.
don't have good awareness or even policies. So I've put together this free course for HR professionals who wants to get an introduction and become a bit familiar with where to start, how to approach this
Yeah.
topic in the workplace.
And I think that would be super helpful even for managers. Because myself, I remember actually, I went through it and I had a few team members over the years that went through it. But I can think of one particular person that was in my team. I'm not going to say his name, but I remember him. I was very touched because I think he had been raised by his grandmother, and when she passed away, it was as if his mom passed
Mm.
because she raised him. And I remember that was just like you could see the person being upset. And I remember in my head, I was like, okay, how can I communicate? I don't want to be, I'm super direct as a person. I don't want to be too direct.
Mm.
Then there is the cultural difference based on where the person is from,
Mm.
so it's very hard to navigate as a manager, as a leader. Now, naturally, you can go with your instinct, and some people would be comfortable with that, but most people wouldn't. So
Mm.
when we feel awkward, what we do, we don't say too much because we're afraid of saying too much. So I can see this as the only thing I was like, okay, I'm going to give him all the time and space he needs. So I told him, look, you do what you need. Like, don't worry about the targets, the this, the that. We'll get it covered. Somebody will take over. Take all the time that you need. You can take days off, or you can just not be here and not put the days in the system. That's the kind of manager I was when I felt like somebody who was a great performer actually he needed the company to show a bit of love, and it's
Yeah.
hard for businesses to show love. So for me, that was the way I was making my business show love to him.
Mm.
But I don't know if I did a good job. I mean, only him could say it today actually.
Yeah.
So my question is, like, how do you think, like what would you say, like, if you had a magic wand, right, and you could speak to super high level executive. Like, I know you worked in the past for a big French company. I work for American companies. A lot of them are based out of the HQ is based out of San Francisco or Silicon Valley. Like, so we know that world where it's very multicultural as well, on top of that, which adds even more complexity. If you had a magic wand, or you'd be able just to make somebody important appear in front of you, like a key decision maker, right, somebody who could just by saying something change things, what would you like to see change in businesses so that you or other people could help employees, or HR or leadership? Like, what would you like to do if you could?
Like why I would like to see
No,
a change.
what would you like the change to be, and what
Mhm.
would you say to somebody in power
Mm,
that could make that change for you?
yeah, that's a really good question.
Sorry, I didn't want to put you on the spot.
No, but it is a really good question. And I think it's about normalizing something. And I think that there have been other things that were hidden like long ago when we look at, for example, diversity and inclusion and being able to show up with your full self and be who you are at work. And I think that is what needs to happen with grief, because it's not about forcing everybody to share their grief stories. That's not the idea. But as it is now, many people feel that they have to hide a part of themselves when they go to work because it's not accepted. And so we pretend it's not there. But so somehow, if that powerful person could make it okay for it to be visible uh, and um, and normal
Mm,
like other things. And for example, now at least in the area where I am, for example, menopause has become sort of in fashion. No one talked about it.
it's
Like,
everywhere. Don't.
yeah, and no one talked about it a few years ago, and now it's everywhere. So if we can get that kind of motion
Yeah,
going for the grief, because it is there and it has always been there,
yeah.
we're pretending it's not there. I don't know if that answers your question,
Yeah,
but
yeah, it does. It does. I mean, something that I wonder always, obviously, having moved from the corporate world into coaching, like fully, I wonder, I always felt like in tech. So obviously, I've done the typical business degree, master, whatever thing, and we've been, I would say, almost brought up thinking you have to be logical, you have to be rational. It's about performance, it's about showing up, and we have a lot of buzzwords, especially in tech. And I say we as if I was still there because I've been bred like that. But it's all about the performance, the just you own. I mean, it's a bit harsh for me to say that, but there is a playbook on how to be successful, on how to communicate when you're in leadership, when you're a manager, when you're a leader, when you're an employee who wants to be promoted. Don't show weaknesses, just show strength. Show that. So we all learn to be completely polished and almost polish ourselves as well sometimes, the way we look, the way we act, the way we dress. So I wonder, where is the space for feelings? Like I coach, like yourself, a lot of people, and I see a lot of people in tech, salespeople or even leaders. It's even when they feel a certain way, it's like, no, 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 I keep on going. Yeah, no problem. I'll do this. I'll do that. But it's like, when do we are responsible as well as people for feeling uncomfortable about discussing our feelings and emotions, because it has been not officially seen as, but sometimes it can come across as a weakness. Would that affect me for my next promotion? Or I want to become a manager, I want to manage a team, but if I cry in front of people, how does that make me like a good manager?
mm,
you know
yeah,
so and
yeah.
and just touching on grief as well, a lot of people are made redundant sometimes these days, and it's about grief as well.
Definitely,
Mm,
especially if you worked in a place maybe for a long time and you know exactly what you're doing there, everybody knows you, it has become a big part of your identity,
mm,
and then suddenly that is taken away. That definitely causes to grieve. Um, so yeah, and I think as you were mentioning this demand or that this pressure that we have to behave like almost like robots, just going through life without being touched by anything that happens. Um, I think there's a misunderstanding too that if a company is investing in support or caring for the employees, that it will be at the expense of profitability and the success of the company. but that is not the case. We know that when people can show up and be their full selves and feel accepted, validated, acknowledged for who they are and their experiences, that builds trust, and that drives engagement and commitment. And we know that engaged and committed employees produce more. So the productivity is affected, and the other way around. If you don't feel accepted and validated and seen, and you feel like you need to hide grief, for example, that can lead to, disengagement. It can lead to like sick leave and absences and burnout. But even the ones that doesn't really show that clearly, it can lead to this disengagement, withdrawal, and then quiet quittings. And those are red flags for HR departments and businesses overall. So there should be like an incitement here to really look into this, because there's much to gain from a business perspective as well.
Wow. And that's perfect, because you've actually answered the question I was going to ask was going to be, why should businesses care about grief? So as you said, well, it's going to have a great impact on your employees, their engagement, their productivity, their loyalty, definitely.
Okay.
There will be less friction in the workplace as well. Like people would be, that would be a good place to work. It would be more trust.
Definitely. And as you said, with the retention, it's it creates this loyalty. And if you look at it from an employer branding perspective, reputation wise, I mean, every company wishes for their employees, if they were to, in their spare time, spontaneously, without being pressured, if they were to mention good things about their employer and talking about how grateful they are for working there and things like that, that is the best marketing you can get, the best publicity.
Yeah.
And if you go through maybe the hardest time of your life and you do feel supported and cared for in the workplace, that is the kind of thing that will stick with you and that will form that kind of ambassadors in the long run.
You'll never forget it. People that help you in those times.
Yeah, exactly. And I even read that over 50% of people in this survey, at least, would consider changing employers if they were not treated well, if they were in grief. So I mean, it's a big
Totally. Right. I'm conscious of time, because eventually we have to wrap the conversation. And hopefully we never wrap this conversation. Hopefully it's just a starting point. And I'm hoping that you and I can have another conversation, because I think there's a lot to say about the topic. So anytime you want, like, just ping me and we'll do this one another time. I just want to go back quickly and just maybe finish with a general question, but I want to really go back to that beautiful image of the stone. You said it's like having a stone in your pocket, and at first it's heavy, it's uncomfortable. It never gets lighter, but you get stronger. So I suppose, and then you shared with us like learnings, like, you're not alone. You can find help with strangers, can even be close to you. So whether you find a group like yourself or even a grief coach, might actually be able to help you process things. What would be for people the best way to? So I have a few questions that I'm going to stack up right here. So first is, where can people find you? What can they do if they want to join your course? And if you had to say, maybe, could you elaborate? And I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but quickly give us like 3 key aspects of how you support people. It's kind of your quick pitch on, why should I come to you if I need support with grief? So You can take those questions in any order that you want.
Okay, so first, of where to find me. I
Mhm.
think the easiest might be to go to LinkedIn and look me up there, because then you will find also my company and me. And right now, there is a link to my course. There is also a pop-up right now on my website with a link where you can sign up for this free course. And thinking about why to come to me, I would say that, I mean, as in all coaches, the solutions are not with me. I don't have a magic plan, but with my experience and my ability to read between the lines and not not judge, I will help the client find confidence, clarity, and hopefully bring some fun back into our life, which we all want and we all deserve, even when something bad has happened.
And that's super interesting. And just to echo on that, it's usually we see transformation in people when they shift their energy, as we know. So I think there is an element of shifting that energy, and because you've been through it yourself and you've worked on yourself uh, with the help of other people, uh, now you understand how to support other people. So that's wonderful. Uh, Maybe is there anything else you want to say before we close the conversation today?
Um,
Something that you want people to stay with?
well, I think maybe one thing, because we didn't get in too much on. We talked about people being uncomfortable, not knowing what to say, or
Mm.
and so they don't say anything. So I just wanted to touch super quickly
Yeah,
on
please
that.
do. We have time, by the way. We can always take the time we need.
Yeah. So because I think in most cases, saying something is better than saying nothing. And I think one of the reasons people feel so uncomfortable approaching someone in grief is that we have this like default setting that we think that we need to come and offer a solution. We are problem solvers, many of us. So it feels very uncomfortable to approach a person and not knowing how to fix it. Um, but in this case, grief isn't a problem that you can fix or that you can solve. Um,
Oh my God. This is
yeah,
very powerful.
yeah, because yeah, the only thing that could solve a problem is to bring a person or something back that we can't bring back. So I think by just taking that pressure off, that this is not your problem to fix, it might be easier to go over to that person and simply say, I heard what happened. I just want you to know that I'm so sorry you have to go through this. And then just leave it there. Not not trying to, not saying, now I'm going into the don'ts. So not saying things that start with at least they have a good life, at least you got many years together, because that just minimizes the pain and the loss, and can even cause this other person to feel guilty for not being more grateful when they're in pain. So not trying to sugarcoat it, and not saying that everything happens for a reason.
Oh my God. This is, I know, yeah, this is the sentence.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, I used to believe that myself, and it has really helped me through other challenges in life, thinking that I might not see it now, but in the end, I will see why this happened and it will all make sense. And that is one of the big shifts for me after this experience, realizing that not all things happen for a reason. There is no reason in the world that could justify
Mhm.
Kalle being taken away from his children and me losing the love of my life. And, you know, nothing could make me go, ah, okay, so that's why he had to die. That makes sense. Now it was worth it. There just isn't. So um, just just acknowledging that I'm really sorry you have to go through this. Um, and then also, I think as you shared, many people say, let me know if I can do anything.
Mm.
And my guess is that you never reached out to them to get help with anything.
No, never.
No, people don't, and because it's too vague, and especially when you're in that sort of acute shock phase of grief, that becomes sort of another thing to add to your to-do list. That, oh, now I need to decide if they can help me with what, and you don't even know like your own name hardly.
Yeah.
So if you want to really help and show up in that practical way, depending on how well you know that person, of course, then try to be really concrete and specific.
Yeah.
By saying like, I'm going to the grocery store, I'm dropping some things off at your front door at 5 today. You can just text it. And if the person wants to talk, they can show up, and otherwise they cannot. Or can I take your kids to the park on Sunday? Or like offer something concrete that is really helpful.
And this is really powerful what you're sharing, because what if we can even learn at work how to, I mean, from work, as in this being an initiative from businesses to provide that type of coaching for their employees. And that could be their leaders, so that the leaders would know how to support employees. And as well, maybe offer a coach like yourself to employees as part of a benefit when they go through something like this. And to me, there is an element as well where, you know, how we had to educate people on diversity. Now it seems like, oh my God, this is so boring, because we've been all kind of educated. At least we believe we have. I don't believe we. Anyways, that's another topic. But the point is, like, imagine if businesses could educate people on grief. Now we know, as you said, grief is not only about death. We all go through grief all the time. So imagine if businesses were educating people, but then people go back to their lives. I mean, even though we spend 75% of our time at work, but when they go back to their lives, that would help them have better lives, because they will be able to connect better with other people, support better. So it's like the impact businesses can have on people. And I like to say, it sounds very cliche, on the world, helping people deal better with grief.
Yeah, definitely. That would be such a beautiful shift. And I think it's we've said it now that grief shows up everywhere, and but I still think people think it's so much more rare than it is. And I saw these numbers that 44% of the adult population in Sweden have experienced the loss of a colleague at some point. That's almost half the people. And 24% of people in the working age in the UK experienced a loss in the last 12 months. And that's like millions of people. So it is everywhere. And now we're just talking about death. Sorry. But then you have all the other.
No, but that's so true. Because when you were speaking, I just had two names of people in my head that were colleagues of mine that passed away.
Yeah.
And I just can think of two now. And I'm sure that there are more, unfortunately. So yeah. So listen, Christine, thank you so much for sharing. I do hope that every single person who will listen to you, who will feel the need, will actually act on it and get in touch with you, even for like a 30-minute call, just to discuss how you could help them, or maybe if they just want resources, you know, that's always a start, because we are here to serve people.
Definitely. I hope so too. I'm ready to serve, and just reach
Thank
out.
you so much.
Thank
Have
you.
a lovely day. Cheers.